Hi, I'm Mason Marangella from Vertex SSS here at Sweetwater to bring you our all-new pedal, the Steel String MkII SRV Slight Return version. Let's check it out. So what makes the SRV version distinct from the normal Steel String MkII version? They have a lot of the same features. They can still be used as a 100% analog preamp pedal that I usually recommend go after all of your overdrives to kind of impart the D-style, Dumble-style clean tone akin to the Steel String Singer amplifier used by players like Eric Johnson, John Mayer, and of course Stevie Ray Vaughan. If you look at the steel string side of the Steel String MkII SRV, it's the exact same pedal as this limited edition that we came out with back in 2018. And this thing now commands upwards of $400 and $500 on the used market. It has such a cult following. So we took this exact circuit, implanted it into the SRV version, and then brought in all the other components of the all-analog Supreme side, which also allows you to not only go direct with any sort of cabinet IR, but also allows you to run it as a normal pedal, as a preamp, right in front of your amplifier to bring all that D-style clean tone and all the great things that it does. The SRV version is also totally redesigned with new values for the toggle switches when you're going between rock and jazz, and also bright and deep. So you can really exaggerate the glassiness of the Stevie Ray Vaughan tone when you're in that up position, when you're in the bright, so it just gives you a little bit more of that cut. Equally, when you're in the deep, you can get a lot of low-end fatness and big bottom end, and then we also have a neutral position in the middle if you want some approximation in between. Equally with the rock and jazz switches, you can go up to the rock position for a little bit more aggressive SRV type tone, or you can go to the jazz if you want to get something that's a little bit more like Lenny, a little bit cleaner style, or you can go again neutral in that middle position, which kind of gives you a splitting of the difference between the two positions. So what are we going to be hearing today? You're going to be hearing my friend Jules Leahy, who's a wonderful guitar player and also a huge Stevie Ray Vaughan fan just like me. He's going to be using a custom shop Roy Gallagher Strat, all passive pickups, going into the Steel String MkII SRV, and then that's going to be feeding in to a Fender Hot Rod DeVille 212. If you know anything about Stevie Ray, you know he loves reverb, so we're going to be using the spring reverb on board this amp. And then we just have a single Sennheiser microphone on one of the speakers of the 212. Very simple setup, amp is set totally clean, and we're letting the pedal do all the talking. So let's start with the first song. We're going to do a little Lenny on this one. This is going to be totally clean using the SRV model to just add a little bit more enhancement of the clean tone, a little bit more glassiness, adding a little bit more of the big bottom end. You're going to be able to see the settings here exactly the way that we're using and the settings on the amp, just keeping it really organic, really lush, and bringing that D-style clean tone to the mix, and just getting that beautiful Stevie Ray Vaughan touch and feel, and really letting the pedal shine. Let's do it. So that sounded absolutely incredible. I think that Jules really nailed the essence not only of the playing, but also you can hear that glassiness and kind of the transparency of how the notes decay, but it still has a bigness, a compression to it that's very natural and tubey, and the pedal is doing a great job at that. But I do have one admission to make. That actually wasn't going through the Fender tube amp. It was actually going through a 2-notes cab M that I have set to do a G1265 Dumble style cabinet, which you can actually download for free in the links below. Now for the rest of the demos today, we're just going to be using the amp, but there was a little trickery here, and we were not using the amplifier for this first example. Again, it was the Steel String MkII SRV going right into that IR loader, and we did use a little bit of post-production spring reverb just so that it would match up more closely with what the amp tones are that you're going to hear. But I think it's a good proof that shows that it can do a great job going into an IR loader or cab stimulation just as well as it can go through a tube amp as you're about to hear. So let's go on to the next Stevie Ray Vaughan song. We're going to do a little Texas Flood here. I'm going to change over the settings a little bit on this just to give it a little bit more gain, a little bit more girth, because we know that we have a little bit higher gain sound here. We have a little bit more single note work here. We want to get that to stand out, to compress, bring a little bit of that mid-range, and still have a nice fat bottom and a nice glassy top end. Jules is going to come back and take the hot seat. Let's hear how this sounds doing a little Texas flip. Sounded absolutely killer. I love how Jules took some of the classic elements of that song, brought it in here so we can get a vibe of what this would do at a little bit higher gain setting. And I want to continue that now on this next song. We're staying with a little bit more gain. We're going to do a little Pride and Joy, classic Stevie Ray Vaughan song. Has about the same amount of gain. I'm going to pretty much keep the same exact settings here because they're roughly approximately about the same amount of gain on this. So you can just hear another version of this that's mixing a little bit of single notes with a little bit of chording and kind of getting into some of that blues shuffle tone. Again, bringing that D style, that Dumble style Steel String Supreme sound and adding a little bit more gain. Again, this pedal has 2 channels. We're using both of them on together so you can really get the full essence of what this thing is doing going right into that hot rod DeVille. Let's do it. Now that was absolutely great. I love what Jules did with Pride and Joy. I think it sounded great, did a good blend of mixing sort of a shuffle blues in with some single notes and some chording. But I now want to go to the song Tightrope and really just skip to the solo section so that you can really hear what this pedal does when it's adding some compression, adding some fatness, and great note sustain so that you can really see what this thing does when you're playing solos and how much it brings to the table as just a pedal on its own. Again, using both channels here. Adding a little bit more gain on this setting just to get a little bit extra sustain out of it. And I think you're really going to be impressed at what it does. Again, the glassiness that it brings to that top end, the fat low end, and really embodying a lot of that SRV style Texas tone. I thought that absolutely sounded great. I love how Jules did a little interpretation, just kind of coming in right before the solo, getting some of those solo notes, and really getting to hear how well the notes bloomed and how big and fat the pedal stayed throughout the entire thing. Again, super simple signal path. We got the guitar, we got the pedal, and then going straight into a very common backline amp with the Hot Rod DeVille. So thank you so much to Jules for coming today, for laying down some Stevie Ray Vaughan tunes for us and doing the very best that he could. It's not an easy feat. I know here on YouTube it's not necessarily a judgment-free zone when it comes to playing and interpreting some of the classic artists that we all know and love, but I appreciate Jules for taking the hot seat and doing a great job embodying those tones. What I can say about this pedal is that as close as a pedal can get to the sound and essence that Stevie Ray Vaughan brought to the table, this is certainly getting you a lot of the way there in terms of what the amp does. You could throw a tube screamer on in front of this, and I think you could even get even more of the essence of what's possible in the Stevie Ray Vaughan sound, because presumably he always had on some sort of tube screamer. Nevertheless, if you want the core bass sound of what Stevie Ray was using, especially in the later half of his career when he was really utilizing the Dumble steel string singer, I think this pedal is going to be very satisfying for you. And even if you want to get some of those tones that he was grabbing out of vibroverbs or the super reverbs earlier in his career, I very much think that a lot of those same tones are capable and possible through this pedal as well. So it really offers you kind of a retrospective of the entire career of SRV and really pays homage the best way that we can in this all analog circuit. I hope you dug what you saw today, and if you're interested in this pedal, definitely talk to your Sweetwater sales engineer. They're going to be able to give you more sample settings, talk to you about different applications of how this might work with your cab simulator or IR loader or your tube amp so that you can really get the best and most versatile applications out of this pedal. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Mason Marangella from Vertex FX. See you later.